Guys, you're welcome to my YouTube channel once again, and on today's tutorial I'll be teaching you guys how to model a cup, how to texture the cup, how to do UV unwrap, how to set up your lights, and how to set up your camera also, and how to render your scene. So now let's proceed. Okay, first of all, this is Blender 2.83.1, and now so this is the first thing you will see in Blender. You see this information, so you can click outside it, and now the first thing you see is a cube. So now I'll be showing us how to navigate around Blender, and also the transform tool, the manipulation tool, and I'll be talking about our four window projection also. So now we have a cube in here. So this place that we see, this region is called the 3D windows, where the cube is. It is called the 3D windows. And this side of the Blender interface, here we have our tools. We have our select tool. We have our cursor. We have our move tool. They are called the tool window. They are our manipulation tools. We use them to move, to rotate, to scale an object in our 3D window. So this other side is called the outliner window. This is where when we select our cube, it shows out here. We select our light, now it's showing, it means that there's light in our scene and there's a camera in our scene. So what I want to show you next again, so these are our timeline windows for setting keyframes for animations. And also these are our info windows, where we come to file here. You can create new scene, you can open a new file, you can open a recent file, a recovered file. You can also save. So now let's save our Blender file by clicking Ctrl S to save on your keyboard. Now go to where you want to save your Blender file, and I will choose this place to save my Blender file. Now say cup model, and enter, and come here to say save Blender file. So now our Blender file is saved, is shown in this upper part of our screen here. It says desktop Blender Studio / cup model.blend. So we've saved our file. Now let's proceed to navigating around our 3D space. So how to orbit your screen is very simple. You hold your middle mouse button and you rotate. So this is how to orbit your 3D windows. Now how to pan or move your 3D windows. You hold shift and middle button, your middle scroll button, to pan and move your scene either forward or upward or downwards. Now how to zoom in and out. You hold control and middle button to zoom in and out. Control and middle button to zoom in and out. You hold control and middle button to zoom in and out. Now again, the green line on our grid denotes the y-axis, while the red line denotes the x-axis, while the blue line denotes the z-axis. But we can't see the blue line, the blue line now unless we select this box. Let's select our box by left clicking on it to select an object. We left click on the object to select an object. So let's come to our move tool here. So now we can see this blue arrow. It denotes the z axis. So we can move our cube on the z axis. We can move on the y axis. We can also move on the x axis. Same for the rotate. We can rotate on the x axis. We can also rotate on the z axis. We can also rotate on the y axis. So let's do Ctrl Z back. Ctrl Z. We can also scale our cube. Also, this tool here is for scale, and the shortcut for scale is S on our keyboard. Click S to scale uniformly. Shortcut for move is G for grab. G, so you can click G and X to move on the x-axis while locking the y and z axis. So you can also say arrow on your keyboard for rotate and say y, That means you want to rotate on the y-axis, locking the z and x. So you can try that out at your own time. Now let's get started to modeling our cup. So the first thing you should understand about 3D modeling is flow. Flow is how an object looks like, because before you start modeling an object, you should actually understand how the object looks like, and how you can achieve a smooth model. So now we want to model a cup, and a cube does not look like a cup. So what actually looks like a cup is a cylinder. So now we're going to delete this cube and bring in a cylinder. So to delete an object from your Blender scene, you left click on the object and you click delete on your keyboard. Now you can see that the cube is out of our scene. So now let's bring our cursor back to Word. And our cursor, if you hold shift and right click, you can move your cursor to any place you want to bring your object to. So any place your cursor is, that's where your object will be placed on. So now let's bring our cursor back to the middle. We can say shift S on our keyboard, and let's say cursor to world origin. And now our cursor is back to the center of our grid. So now there are four windows projection in Blender. We have the front view, we have the side view, we have the left view, we have the back view, we have the top view, and we have the bottom. So now I'll be showing us how to navigate around those views. So first of all, one on your notepad is the front view. One on your notepad is the front view. Three is the right view. So you can see it here, right orthographic view. You can see right orthographic view. So if you say 1 for front view, 3 for right view, 7 for top view, and we say 9 for bottom. And to go to the left view is the opposite of the right view, which is Control 3 on your keyboard is for left view, Control 1 is for back view, Control 7 is for the bottom also. So that's that. That's how to navigate around your four window projection. And we can also do Control Alt Q to go to our four window projection. Control Alt Q. This first one by our left top is the top view. This one here is called the perspective, user perspective view. And the one beneath here is called our front view, and this is for our right view. Now let's go back to our full perspective view. So we do Control Alt Q again. So now we are back to our full perspective user interface view. So now what I'll be showing you now is how to bring in an object and how to go to edit mode, and let's create our cup. So how to add an object to our Blender scene is very simple. There are two ways of adding objects into our Blender scene. We can come to this point where we'll have add and click on add and go to mesh and bring in a cube. Now we have a cube on our scene. Now let's delete the cube first by clicking delete on our keyboard. Delete. So the shortcut key to add an object into our scene is Shift A. So if you click Shift A on your keyboard, the add menu comes up. You go to mesh and let's say cylinder. Now we have a cylinder on our 3D window. So what I want to do now is that I'm not seeing my edges. The edges are very faint in this cylinder. So I'll come to this point where we have overlays. If you highlight it, it says overlays. Click on that arrow that is pointing down, and we have our viewport overlays. Go to geometry. Under geometry, activate wireframe, and now we can see our edges properly. So what I want to do now is that I want to create a simple cup. So I can select this and let me scale it a little bit until I want it to be down. So now I want to create my cup. So what I will do, I will go to my front view by clicking 1 on my keyboard. 1. So now this is my front view. So I want to go to edit mode. So the mode we are in now is called the object mode. The object mode is a mode that we can edit our object, but as it says edit mode, that's in that edit mode we can add loop cuts, we can select vertices, we can select our edges, we can select faces, and then I'll be showing us what are vertices, what are edges, and what are faces, and how to make use of them. So now to go to edit mode, there are two ways of going to the edit mode also. So you can come to this place that we have object mode, and beside it there is an arrow that is pointing down. If we check the arrow that is pointing down, it shows us different modes that we can go into. We have the edit mode, sculpt mode, vectors paint, weight paint, and texture paint. But we'll be going to the edit mode, and let's see how it looks like. So click on the edit mode. So when you click on edit mode, you will see that your mesh is highlighted with a kind of orange light. So that shows that we're in edit mode. And if you click tab on your keyboard, we are back to object mode. So the shortcut key for edit mode is tab, and the shortcut key also to go to object mode is also tab on your keyboard. Okay, now let's start right away. Tab on your keyboard for edit mode. Now let's go to our front view and start shaping our object to look like a cup. So click 1 on your keyboard. And what we want to do is that I want to go to my wireframe mode. So to go to wireframe mode is simply Alt Z on your keyboard. So now click Alt Z on your keyboard. Alt Z. Now we can see all our vertices. So a point is called a vectors. Now let me do Alt Z back so you can see clearly. Let me show you what a point is before we start modeling the cup. So this is a point, this is a vectors. Vectors are points. This is a vectors, this is a vectors. Vectors is a point. 2 vectors makes an edge. So for edge selection, for vector selection first is one on your keyboard, but it's different from the front view selection. To go to our front view is one on our notepad, then while one on our keyboard is for vector selection. 2 is for edge selection, and 3 is for face selection. So those are our shortcut key. Another ways of selecting vectors is edge and faces is at this region. This point here is for vertex selection. So I can click on this point for vector selection. And if you hold shift, you can select more than one vertices. You can select multiple vertices in a row or in a column. And if you come to this other place, edge, you can select edge. This is for edge selection. And if you hold shift, you can select more than two edges, more than one edges also. So same thing with the face selection, which is 3 for the shortcut. You can select multiple faces by holding shift also. So you can scale a face. If you say S to scale, you can move a face upwards. Also the same thing with the vectors. You can easily move a vectors. One on our keyboard for vectors mode. So you can move a vectors, but you can't scale one vectors. So now let's go straight to modeling. One for on our notepad for front view, and now let's do Alt Z for wireframe. Alt Z on our keyboard, we are on wireframe. So now we are in vertex mode, one for vectors mode. So now what we'll do, we'll Windows drag and select all these vertices beneath here. So while holding your left click, so window drag on your 3D window to select all these vectors here, and let's say S on our keyboard to scale, looking like a cup. S to scale a little bit, so you can move your hand upwards. If you move your hand upwards, you scale inwards, and you can scale outwards by moving your hands downwards. So now let's move our hands inwards to scale to this point, and let's push this down. Now we can select all this and bring our cup to the middle of our grid. I want the cup to be on top of the red line. Yeah, it's looking okay. So now what we want to do again, we want to add loop cuts. So loop cut helps us to actually reshape an object. So to add a loop cut to this cup is very simple. Control arrow on your keyboard for the shortcut key to add a loop cut. So then once you click Control arrow, you left click and you see a black arrow that is opposite each other. That tells you that you can move this loop cut upwards or downwards. But first, let's bring it to the center here of our cup. Just push it upwards a little bit and say left click to okay that. Now let's add another loop cut because I want to create a kind of curve here. So control arrow to add another loop cut to this point. And now let's scale this loop cut. So we can scale vertices, we can scale this loop. So S to scale. Now let's add a loop cut here. Control arrow to add one loop cut. And we say S to scale. And now let's push this vertex upwards to this point. Okay, it's pretty cool this way. So what I want to do now, I will add another loop cut. Control arrow to add one more loop cut down here. So now let's go to Alt Z. Let's go out of wireframe mode, Alt Z, so we can see our cup very well. And now let's scroll. Try to rotate your screen so you can go out of front view. Now this is how our cup look like. So now we can say Control arrow to add four loop cuts out here in here. Now left click to activate that, and let's add four loop cuts here also. So if you scroll your mouse button, you can add so many numbers of loop cuts. If you scroll downwards, your loop cuts will be reduced. So if you scroll upwards, you can add multiple loop cuts. So let's make it 5 and left click to OK that. So what I want to do now is that I want to go to my face selection here and select this face and click delete on our keyboard. So that's basically how a cup look like. So select, come to face selection, come to this point, or you press 3 on your keyboard and press delete. And once you press delete, the delete menu comes up and it shows you options. Either you want to delete your vertices or the edges or the face, or only edge and faces, or only face, or dissolve vertex, or dissolve edge, or dissolve faces. But what we want to do, we want to delete just the face. So click on face to delete, and now you see that the face has been deleted. So what I want to do now is that I want to add some thickness to this cup. So I will come to our modifier panel. This place is called our modifier properties. So we can, this place is called our properties panel. So if you come to this point where we have this kind of spanner looking symbol, if you click on it, if you highlight it, it says modifier properties. Now click on that place that says modifier properties. So now it shows you a menu that says add modifier. So let's add modifier to our cylinder. Click on this add modifier here and go to solidify. You click on solidify, and now let's see our cup. If you watch here, it's a little bit thickness, but we can still come here and add some thickness to it also. So if we increase this, so we can add so many thickness, but we just want it to be a very small thickness to the cup. I think this is okay for the thickness. So what we want to do now, we can't apply this modifier on the edit mode. We can only apply this modifier on our object mode. So now we're going to click tab to go back to object mode on your keyboard. So now we come to this place where we have apply and say apply. So now we have applied the solidify modifier to our cup. So what I want to do now, I want to rename this cylinder. So here we are having cylinder as the name of this cup. So I want to change the name to a cup. So now to rename an object is very simple. If you say F2, the rename menu comes up. It says object name. So we can say while selecting the cylinder, click on F2 and let's say cup and okay. And now you see that the name has changed from cylinder to cup. Now let's proceed on our model. Select the cup and click tab on your keyboard for edit mode. Now click tab for edit mode. So what we want to do, we want to add some loop cut also to give details to this cup because we're going to add what we call subdivision surface, and we're going to place our cup at shade smooth also. So let's add one more loop cut beneath this place. Control arrow to add loop cut. Let's add two and okay that. So now let's come here and add one more two also inside and say okay. Now let's add a loop cut at the top of our cup here. So now say control arrow to add a loop cut and let's add one here. So what I want to do next is that I want to insert this face here. Now if I first of all let me go to my subdivision. Now go back to our modifiers properties and click on this add modifiers and go to subdivision surface. And now let's cage this. Come here and click on this cage on cage and let's say tab back to object mode. So now we can see our cup, how our cup is looking. So if I come back to our overlays and click on the overlays and check check out this wireframe. So now we can see our cup. And now if you watch, it's as if our edge lines are still showing. So what we do, you right click on this cup and go to shade smooth. So once you click on shade smooth, our cup is now looking very smooth. But if you watch, our cup is not too looking sharp. The edges are very rounded. We don't have kind of sharp edges. So let's go back to our edit mode and add some few edge loops to enhance the look of this cup. So let's click tab on our keyboard back to edit mode. So now we can come to this place and add one more loop cut in here. Control arrow, add one loop cut here and bring down. Control arrow again, add one more loop cut here and push upwards and left click to activate that. And now if you can see, we are having kind of details, we're having more details on our cup. So now let's go back to our edit mode. So what we want to do now, I want to add one more loop cut beneath the cup, tab and say control arrow, add one more loop cut here. And now there's what we called insert. So as you can see, the under of this cup is looking rounded and I want it to look very flat. So now if I uncheck this scene here, this real-time viewport, now we are back to um, our real object, no more smooth on it. So we can come here now and go to face selection, select this face. So now I want to insert this face. So to insert a face is I on your keyboard. So if you say I, select this face and click I to insert and push inwards, hold I again and push inwards. You can say I again and push inwards. Now let's add one loop cut here. Control arrow to add a loop cut. Let's just add bring this way. Let's do the same inside the cup. Go to face selection, select inside of this place, and you can zoom in and say I to insert, and I again to insert, I to insert. Think you're good with that. I to insert. So we can add one loop cut inside and scale outwards. So now let's toggle on this our read time display modifier. Now this is how our cup looks like. So now let's add one more loop cut up here. Control arrow, add one more loop cut here. So if we add one more loop cut in this place here, the edges will be sharp also. So now if you say tab on our keyboard and see how our cups look like. Now let's go back to edit mode and add one more loop cut. Control arrow, add one more loop cut here, and let's say tab. So basically this is how our cup is looking. So now let's go to edit mode and see the shape of our cup. So our cup is looking pretty cool. It's not looking bad. So this is basically our ice cream cup. So we can still add more details also. We can check around, go to tab and see where we need to add some few details. We can add one more edge loop here. I think the details is enough already. We are good to go. So tab and let's go to 1 on your keyboard for front view. So what I want to do now, I want to set my camera. So by doing that, so what I want to show you how to set up your camera. It's very simple. So what we'll do is that we press 1 on our keyboard to go to front view, and we say on our keyboard Control Alt 0 on the notepad. So definitely we see our camera on facing our cup. So we can make some adjustments by clicking N on our keyboard and come to view and go to lock camera to view, and now we have the chance to adjust our camera. So you can use your center mouse button to adjust your camera. You can hold control to zoom out. So let's leave it this way, and now let's try to use our middle mouse button to zoom out. You can rotate, and I want this to be aligned at the center. So hold shift to move your camera. I think this is okay now. I think this is okay. So now we are going to check this box back. So uncheck it back, and now we've locked our camera to view. So N on your keyboard for this note to go back. So this is what we have. So anytime you click 0 on your notepad, you come to this camera view, or you come to this place and click on toggle the camera view. So this is basically how to set up your camera. After you position your object, just go to Control Alt 0 on your notepad. So that by default sets a camera at it just helps you to stage your scene the way you want it to look like. So it makes things very easy. So thank you guys for watching this tutorial. This is the end of part 1, and I hope this tutorial has done you well. Please kindly share this link, like my page, comment, and keep watching the videos. Be anticipated for part 2. In part 2, we are going to do some texturing, UV mapping. We're going to work with Photoshop also. We are going to add lights to our scene, and we are going to render the scene. Thank you guys for watching.